He's so peaceful.
He feels safe with you, and I with him.
Under a sky the color of burned iron, the alpha waited for night to finish swallowing the valley. The wind carried dust and the sharp metallic scent of old blood. It scraped against the rock spines that ringed the hunting grounds and whispered through the broken ruins of a long-dead civilization. Stone towers split open like bones, half buried by centuries of storms. This place had always been dangerous. Tonight, it felt cursed. The alpha stood alone on the highest ridge, his massive silhouette outlined against the dim glow of the planet's dying sun. His fur, once thick and glossy black with streaks of silver, was matted with dried blood and ash. Scars crisscrossed his shoulders and chest, marks of battles survived, challenges answered, enemies broken. He had led his pack for 12 cycles, longer than any alpha before him. But none of that mattered now, because his pub was gone. The cub had been the smallest of the litter, born during a rare storm season when lightning cracked the sky and the ground trembled with ancient fury. The alpha remembered that night, clearly, how the cub's first cry had been weak, almost lost beneath the thunder, how the pack healer had shaken her head and whispered that the cub might not survive the first cycle. Yet survive he did. He learned to walk later than the others. His claws were shorter, his fangs slower to grow, but his eyes, bright, alert, endlessly curious, had followed the alpha everywhere. When the alpha returned from hunts, the cub would stumble over broken stones just to reach him, tail flicking with unrestrained joy. The alpha never said it aloud. Alphas did not show favoritism, but the pack knew, and the alpha knew. That cub was his future. 3 days ago, during a routine perimeter sweep, the ground had collapsed beneath the cub's feet. The old ruins were unstable, hollowed by time and storms. The cub vanished into darkness with a cry that cut through the alpha's chest like a blade. They searched for hours, then days. They tore apart stone and metal with bare claws. They followed every scent trail until it dissolved into dust. The pack howled through the night, voices echoing across the valley, calling for a cub who never answered. By the third night, the pack healer lowered her head. "Enough," she said quietly. "If he were alive, we would have heard him." The alpha said nothing. He ordered the search to continue. By the fourth night, even the strongest hunters could barely stand. Wounds festered, energy waned, the valley grew silent. That was when the alpha gave the order no leader ever wants to give. "We return." The pack obeyed, they always did, but as they descended from the ruins, the alpha stayed behind. Now, on the 5th night, he stood alone on the ridge, staring into the valley where hope had died. The alpha lowered himself onto the stone, heavy and unmoving. His breath came slow and deep, each exhale a silent confession of failure. An alpha was supposed to protect the cubs, to foresee danger, to be stronger than fate. He had been none of those things. Images haunted him. The cub tumbling into darkness, the sound of stone collapsing, the empty silence afterward. He replayed every decision, every step that led them into the ruins. If he had chosen a different route, if he had ordered the cub to stay back, if he had noticed the instability sooner. Regret was a predator more vicious than any rival alpha. The wind shifted, carrying a new scent, faint, unfamiliar, layered with something else. Not pack, not prey. Human. The alpha's ears flicked, his body tensed, instincts flaring despite exhaustion. Humans had arrived on the planet less than a cycle ago. Fragile-looking, soft-skinned, yet strangely fearless. They traveled in metal beasts and spoke in sharp, rhythmic sounds. The pack had avoided them, observing from a distance. Humans were unpredictable. The alpha rose slowly, scanning the darkness. Nothing. Only ruins and shadows. He dismissed it as imagination, another trick of grief. He turned his gaze back to the valley, preparing himself to leave, to return to the pack and lead without the cub he had already buried in his heart. That was when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost ignored it. A whimper. The alpha froze. His heart hammered violently against his ribs. He held his breath, ears straining, every sense sharpening to a painful edge. There it was again. A broken, exhausted sound. Not human, not prey. Cub. No, the Alpha whispered, the word ripping from his throat before he could stop it. Hope was dangerous. Hope killed leaders. Hope had already betrayed him once. Still, his legs moved. He descended the ridge at a pace that would have terrified any lesser hunter, leaping across shattered stone, sliding down slopes of loose gravel. The sound came again, clearer now, echoing from deeper within the ruins. The Alpha followed it into a collapsed corridor, half buried by rubble. Inside, the air was thick and stale. His claws scraped against metal and stone as he squeezed through the narrow opening. And then he saw him. The cub lay curled against a broken support beam, thinner than the Alpha remembered, fur caked with dust and dried blood. One hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. His breathing was shallow, each breath a struggle. But his eyes were open, and when they focused on the Alpha, they widened in disbelief. The cub tried to lift his head. A weak sound escaped his throat. The Alpha crossed the distance in a heartbeat. He lowered himself beside the cub, pressing his massive forehead gently against the smaller one. The contact sent a shudder through him so violent he had to fight to stay upright. "You live," the Alpha murmured, voice breaking despite his will. The cub tail twitched once. The Alpha inhaled deeply, committing the cub's scent to memory. Fear, pain, exhaustion, and something else. Something foreign. Human. The Alpha growled softly, not in anger, but confusion. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned, muscles coiling, prepared to defend his cub with his life. A human stood at the entrance of the corridor, light shining from a device held in her hand. She was small compared to him, wrapped in a protective suit marked with symbols he did not understand. Her posture was cautious, hands raised, voice calm. "It's okay," she said, speaking slowly. "I won't hurt you." The Alpha did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. The human stepped closer, stopping several lengths away. She knelt, setting down a pack. From it, she removed medical tools, clean bandages, glowing scanners, liquid vials. The Alpha snarled once, low and warning. The human froze, then slowly sat back on her heels. "I found him 2 days ago," she said softly, even though she knew he could not understand. "He was trapped. I couldn't move the beam alone. I brought food, water. I stayed." The Alpha looked at the cub again, fresh bandages wrapped around his leg. A faint antiseptic scent lingered beneath the blood. Understanding hit him like a physical blow. The cub had not survived alone. He had been protected by a human. The Alpha's growl faded. He studied the human, her trembling hands, the exhaustion etched in her face, the relief in her eyes at seeing him alive. Slowly, carefully, the Alpha shifted his body away from the cub, giving the human space. The cub made a soft sound of protest. The Alpha huffed gently, reassurance. The human approached, tending to the cub's leg with practiced movements. She winced as she adjusted the splint, but the cub did not cry out. He trusted her. Something inside the Alpha changed. By dawn, the pack surrounded the ruins. They had followed the Alpha's call through the night, voices echoing through the valley in disbelief and rising hope. When they saw the cub alive, thin, injured, but breathing, the valley erupted with sound. The pack healer wept openly as she examined the cub. "The leg will heal," she said, astonished. "Slowly, but he will walk again." The Alpha lifted his head, releasing a long, powerful howl, not of mourning, but of victory. The human stood at the edge of the gathering, uncertain. She had expected fear, violence. Instead, dozens of alien eyes watched her in silence. The Alpha approached her. He lowered his massive head until it was level with her chest. The pack gasped. No Alpha bowed to an outsider. The human froze, heart pounding. The Alpha touched his forehead gently to her shoulder. Gratitude. The pack understood. From that day forward, everything changed. The humans were no longer watched from afar. They were acknowledged, respected, bound by an unspoken pact forged in stone and blood. The cub healed slowly, limping at first, then running, then racing the others across the valley. He never forgot the human who stayed when all hope was gone, and the alpha never forgot the moment he learned the most terrifying truth in the galaxy. Humans did not give up. Not on cubs, not on hope, not on anyone they called their own. And that was why when the alpha looked toward the stars, he no longer felt fear.